So thank you very much and welcome to our session today. As of last count, we had 94 students registered for today's session. This is around landing an undergraduate research job, otherwise known as how to approach a professor for a research position. So I have all of your emails. I will be sending you an email at the end of this that gives you a little infographic that our office has developed that kind of reinforces some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. My name is Dr. Merle Massie. I am the coordinator of undergraduate research initiatives with the Office of Vice President Research here at the University of Saskatchewan. And I'm here to give you the best of my knowledge of how to get a job doing research on campus. All right, let's get things moving. As we gather here today, we acknowledge that we are on I am on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. I pay respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. Underneath, you'll see that I have a private message. This is my own individual land affirmation that I have developed with the Gwen Moss Center. If ever you get a chance to do so, I highly recommend it. Today, of course, or tomorrow, but all this week there have been things going on, but tomorrow is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And as a friend of mine pointed out, you cannot have reconciliation without truth. And so it is on each of us to enter into this conversation, to learn about residential schools and the atrocities of residential schools that happened across Canada and of course across the United States, and to really think through what that means and the privilege that we have to have the education that we have at the University of Saskatchewan. I put a link in here under indigenous.usask.ca. There are a number of events that have been happening all this week, and there are more again tomorrow and more on Friday. So please make sure that you take the time tomorrow to spend some time thinking about your own journey on truth and reconciliation. So first things first, why do you want a research position? I would like you to put your reasons in the chat, and I'm going to pause the recording while you guys do that. At least I think I'm going to pause the recording. Networking. Maybe I'll not. Maybe I'll just shut out what you guys do. Experience. I would love to gain experience. Excellent. Gain some experience in my field of interest. Absolutely. Experience different things, and you do. Learning in a lab or learning in a research situation to get answers from all my questions that Google can't answer. Oh, I love it. Experience in learning. I'm hoping to have a career in research. Well, that's really good. You're definitely ahead of it. Building resumes, thinking of doing it as a profession. These are all excellent reasons for going into research and for thinking through and wanting a research position. I'm surprised. One of the answers that I often get is that people tell me that the College of Medicine is looking for a research experience, and that if you don't have one, that you're less likely to get into the College of Medicine. That's not true, although they will look upon it with a certain amount of favor. I will tell you that. But good, I'm glad. Always hands-on experience, applying knowledge we learn in class. You will get that. You will get that in spades in a research position. It can be true for some medical schools, not so much at USask, that's right. And an interest in neuroscience. Some of you might have noticed that we had a student story that's just come out around a student in neuroscience, Ashton Height, and it's called The Lab Rat. And so please take time to read that, and it talks about Ashton's experience as an undergraduate student conducting research. So, one of the things that I assume that people know, but maybe you don't, is that sometimes research positions are advertised, and they're advertised in places that you might not expect. And I want to show you a couple of places that you might not necessarily think of. Number one is the Student Employment and Career Center. I think it's just called Career Services now. It has changed its name this summer, but the link is the same. It's careerlink.usask.ca, and that is where student jobs are posted. However, and this is a secret that not everybody knows, USask, when I was looking at building my career at the University of Saskatchewan and getting a job, I went looking at USask at careers.usask.ca, and I would encourage all of you to do that as well, and click on not the faculty link but the staff link. There's a specific specialty that's called staff, and I have seen numerous calls within the past 6, 8 months for undergraduate students, or just for students, and they're willing to accept either an undergraduate or a graduate student to conduct small research projects. And so pay attention every week or so, just take a look on that and see if there's anything that's in your area of speciality or anything that you think you might be interested in. Third place, of course, is your department or your college might have a place where there are announcements, or a group website, sometimes a group Facebook page, these sorts of things. Be sure that you're signed up for any kind of listserv, any kind of email links from your department or your college, simply because oftentimes if a professor has a position, but they don't actually have a student lined up or in mind for a position, they will advertise it. And so you need to be watching for these things. So that's the first place. If you think you're already ready, go take a look and see what's there right now and do that first. But what normally happens, and the most common way for someone to land a research position, certainly at the University of Saskatchewan, is by asking. It's by cold calling, which is not the easiest thing for students to do. But over the past year, my department has, my office has developed an infographic about how to approach a research supervisor. And we did this on purpose, because what supervisors across USask told us is that students don't necessarily know how to ask. And so a large part of what we're going to do today is to teach you how to do that well, how to present yourself well, and how to ask properly for a research position. And it could be that maybe you're a first generation. If you don't come from a family that there's other people in your family who've been to university before, you might not know the sort of backdoor routes and the in and out of how research works. And so you wouldn't necessarily know about this. But those of you who had a chance to be at our presentation last week for sure around how the research landscape works at the University of Saskatchewan, that gives you a bit of an overview of how professors win funding, and then how they take that funding and hire undergraduate students and graduate students to help them to carry out their research program. And so if you're interested in that, it is posted on our YouTube site. So I'm going to take you through this infographic on how to approach a research supervisor to give you a little bit of food for thought on how to do it as well as you possibly can. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of real life examples. These are from USask professors, and they are shared anonymously with you, and you can read them for yourself and think whether or not these students have done a good job in presenting themselves to the professors. And then we'll come back to these at the end of the presentation and think of ways that we can make them better. So here's the first one. Dear Sir, I'm such and such a person from the Agricultural College. Because I'm about to graduate in April of this year and I have an idea of continuing my studies, I would like to ask if you have any openings for students. Again, these are real life USask examples from within the past year. Here's the second one. Respected Sir, I am a scholar from such and such a place, and I have done my Master of Science in such and such a place, a university, with research on, and I didn't give the speciality. I'm very fond of work in this specialty field, but due to little resources, I can't afford. I saw your profile regarding the work of X. If you help me in getting admission under your supervision, it's a golden chance for me to work with you, a great researcher. So this guy is really good, guy, girl, I'm not sure, really, really good at buttering up, but perhaps there are ways that we can make these examples even better. So this is the number one. The number one thing to do if you're looking for a research position on campus is to do your homework. Really know which faculty are actively working in the research areas that you're interested in. So this is your chance to network, attend any events, attend any college level or department level events, ask for recommendations from other students. Especially if you happen to find other students who are already working with professors doing the sorts of stuff that you're interested in working on, and also recommendations from professors. Let's say that you're taking a class and you really like your professor and you think that they know what's going on. Ask your professor for some recommendations of who in their department or their college is doing good research and might be interested in having some undergraduate student help. You need to be very strategic and quite targeted. And this is where your own research skills come in to find the right supervisor. Do they share your values? Number one. And we're going to come back to that at the very end. And the other part of research is actually reading about their publications, reading their grants. So do they hold a current grant? Do they actually have research money right now that they're working with and that they might be looking to build up and to have some students? So, and also when I say to read their publications, so read anything that they've published in reputable journals, of course, and which you can access through the University of Saskatchewan Library. And the last thing to check is to make sure that you actually meet university requirements. This isn't so much an issue if you happen to be a Canadian student, but if you're an international student, you do need to check and just make sure that you meet the university requirements and that you have a student visa, that you have a work visa, that you are actually able to meet the requirements to work at the university. So that's all kind of lumped in with doing your homework, is to make sure that you have a really good idea of what's out there, who's out there, who's doing the sort of research that you're interested in, and to make sure that you line up with those particular researchers. So the best suggestion is for you to think about other ways to find research professors. What are some of the other ways that you think you might be able to find or learn about research professors? And you can put some of your ideas into the chat and I'll read them out. Where do you think that you might be able to find research professors to ask about a position? Yep. Graduates and postdocs usually will have some tips. Absolutely. Pay attention to their work if they do share within the class. I have heard a number of students who've said that their professors have actually said in class, hey, by the way, I'm looking for research students if anyone's interested in coming and joining my lab. So, you know, listen all the way to the end of lab and make sure. So those are a couple of good ways. Another way is to pay attention to the University of Saskatchewan news sites. So anyone who's had a recent win, in terms of grants, usually there's some chatter about that, and usually the University of Saskatchewan talks about that. Odette, we will talk about your good grades and how much that matters. It can matter to some professors more than others, but it is not necessarily the breaking point. And so we will be raising that. But these are all really good ways to talk to learn about what professors are out there. Talking to other graduate students or past graduate students or current ones is an excellent way, because then you'll know who's hiring, but also what they're like to work for, because that's the other thing that I do want you guys to be paying attention to. So these are all good ideas. So step number 2. So you've done your research, you've kind of narrowed it down. Maybe you've got 4 or 5 that you think, okay, I can see myself in their particular lab or in their particular research group. Then it's about introductions and connections. So in our COVID environment, and even in our professional environment at the university, sending them an email is usually your first step. And you always want to send it from your professional email address. It's best to send it from your USask email, not your like grannypants@hotmail.com. I have seen those. Please don't do that. Use proper salutation. It's interesting how many people will just go hi there or something really, really informal. And in this case, you do want to be more formal. You want to be very clear and target your pitch just for that particular faculty member. You wouldn't believe how many mass mailed form emails come out from students. They'll just pepper shot everything, every professor in an entire college, and just hoping for something. You don't want to do that. You want to be very clear, you want to be direct, and you want to target it to that particular faculty member. That's why you want to do your research and narrow it down to like 3 or 4 to start with. You want to craft an error-free message, so no typos, misspelled names, use your very best grammar. You always want to attach an up-to-date resume, even if it's just your first time out. They will check your resume. If your email is good enough to actually pique their interest, yes, hello, Dr. X or dear Professor X, these are good ways. We do encourage you to ask the Writing Center for help. write out what you think, even if you're just writing out an email, write it out, send it to the writing center and say, I would like to send this out to research professors across campus. I'm looking to get a research position. Can you help me craft a really good email? And they'll work with you on that. They'll also work with you on your resume as well. So please make sure that you're using the resources that we have at the university, and it doesn't have to be for a class for you to access the writing center. This is absolutely acceptable. The writing center made sure that I knew, and they're the ones who asked me to put it in to make sure that we tell you to ask the writing center for help. So it is in there. So you're crafting your introduction to the very best of your ability is your key second step after defining and deciding who you're going to send it to. So these are some of the things about crafting a professional email in your resume. So address it to the right person. You wouldn't believe how many professors have told me that they get these mass emails that are sent to them, and they'll say, you know, dear Professor Johns, when their last name is Jones, that kind of thing. So being really accurate means doing your homework. As I said, from a professional email account. You also want to start your email by introducing yourself. Who are you? Don't just say, I'm a student in this college. Try and say something. I'm a fourth year student in such and such a college. I'm majoring in this. If you have any previous research experience, or you have some volunteer experience with the college or with the department, those are good things to add as well. So introduce yourself and saying who you are. And also the second part of that is also, why are you writing this email? So to be specific, what do you want? What are you asking for? And we're going to get into that in a little bit in the next slide. And why do you want to work with this professor? That's really key. That's your hook, is to say, I want to work with you because you are researching X, Y, Z, and this is why I'm interested. These are to create that. It shows that you've done your homework, and it shows that you understand what they're doing, and it shows your connection to what they're doing. So when you're, and like I said before, creating a draft email and resume, work with the writing center to make sure it's clean and it's ready to go. I recommend to do that.
We have a question here, Merle.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Someone's asking that if you're replying to a job listing or you're reaching out to a professor that's advertised a job listing, should you just also include your resume, or should you wait for them to volunteer?
No, I absolutely would, especially if you're answering a job listing, then they're looking for your resume. So for sure.
Okay.
Hope that answers it. Absolutely, yeah.
Yep, he said he's got it.
Yeah, you bet. Sounds good. Thank you for jumping in, Alexa. Much appreciated. All right, so the third thing is to know your goals and timelines. Remember how I said in the last slide to know what you're asking for? This is what I want. This is what I'm talking about. So you need to be very direct on this. Are you looking for a 4-month full-time paid internship in summer 2022? Then say that. Are you looking for honors supervision because you're going to start your honors program next fall? Then say that. Are you just about finished your degree, your honors degree, and you're looking for a graduate student position? Say that. Say, I want a part-time assistantship. I have, 6 free hours every week during the school year. I'd love to do that. If you're looking for, if you want a supervisor to help you and to win an NSERC USRA, then you want to say that. If you want a volunteer opportunity, I don't usually recommend those. I always like people who are working to be paid for their work. But sometimes the lab that you really want to work for doesn't have any funding at the moment, but you still really want the experience. So that's up to you. Sometimes you're looking for field experience. You want to work with Dr. Ryan Brook and go chase polar bears and beluga whales or something, then that's perfectly acceptable to tell them what you want. You also need to know your timelines. I'm available to start on X date. These sorts of things. So know your goals and know your timelines and have that very firmly in mind. You can't just say, almost the worst thing that you can do is, I'll do anything. I'll do whatever you need me to do. Please don't do that. Please. It sounds good, sort of. It sounds like you're very open and resilient and you're, want to accept anything, but they don't know you. They don't necessarily know your training. They don't know what you're interested in. Then they want to work with you and make sure that they're crafting a position that actually suits your interests and your future goals. So this is also also a good place to talk about your future goals. I would like to do an honors program starting in fall of 2022, and I am looking ahead towards, doing graduate work after that, something like that. If you know your goals that far ahead now, by all means, feel free to say that. So those are some of the big things. Again, this is just a revamp of what I just said. Some of the things that people don't always think of is that for an NSERC is one of the tri-agencies, the Canadian tri-agencies, the National Sciences and Engineering Research Council. They're the only ones that have an undergraduate student research assistantship funding specifically for undergraduate student research assistants. And that particular program is moving to my office this year. And so I'll be looking after that going forward. And so I'm going to be doing some additional training this fall for students. But the biggest thing is that you can't actually apply for an NSERC USRA unless you have a supervisor. It takes both the student and the supervisor together to apply for a USRA. So you need to have this conversation with a supervisor and get a supervisor lined up before you even apply for that particular program. And that will happen for all kinds of other reasons as well. It's always a good idea to volunteer or shadow someone in a lab. If you're really curious about how things happen in a lab and you think that that's the right lab for you, take the time to volunteer or shadow in that lab, but ask to do that first. Say, I'm really interested in working in your lab. I'm wondering if I can come in and shadow someone for a few days. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to ask for. They might say no, they might say yes, you never know, but asking doesn't hurt a thing. All right. Here's where we start to think about who you are. And this is about knowing your strengths. Yes, it's about how do you stand out. It's true, because these are competitive positions for the most part. But it's also about what do you bring that's helpful or unique. And that can be anything from enthusiasm for the specific research project. So like my grandma just was diagnosed with cancer, and I'm just dying to get into cancer research. This is really important to me. Your ability to handle adversity. So if you're working at a foreign university and this is your second or even your third language, you've had built-in adversity that you've been overcoming just to be here. Multiple languages, lots of professors will look at that and say, that's a great skill. Community volunteering experience, that all goes towards knowing what your strengths are. Python programming skills, or whatever, if you know how to code, these are all skills for the modern world. Skills for the modern world. And so make sure that make sure they're on your resume for sure. But if you think they actually apply for the research position, then you can feel free to put it right on that introductory email. What is your passion and what would you like to learn? So spend some time really thinking about that. And again, it goes back to that thing that I said around, don't ever send an email that says, I'll do anything you want. Please don't do that. Please be really specific. Know yourself and know that you have worth that you are bringing to the table. Your energy and your intelligence and your ability is going to help that professor to move their research project forward. And so they need you just as much as you need them. So do keep that in mind as well. You have worth. And so really think about what you're worth. Know your strengths. This has come up already. So SURE as a program has only been around since last spring. So this is its fifth iteration. There aren't yet that many professors across the university that know about the program. It's not something that's in everybody's back pocket, although it's growing very, very quickly as a program by leaps and bounds. But if you're going to apply and you want to say, well, I took the SURE program, so I know everything there is to know about research. Well, I'm going to be the first to tell you, no, you don't. No, you don't know everything there is to know about research just because you were in the SURE program. What it does and what it signals is that you can use it as an example of your interest in research. So we actually had one student who got so excited about doing research, they actually went out and tried starting a research project on their own, and then went to go and find a supervisor for the research project, which is backwards, completely backwards, because the original research that they did actually involved doing some interviews, and you cannot do that without ethics. And you have to have your ethics in place and approved before you can go out and do any research. And so the research that student conducted was all backwards, and he wasn't going to be able to use any of the research that he did. So please don't do that. I appreciate that some people get excited and they're like, oh yeah, I want to present in the SURE symposium. I'm going to go out and do some research. No, please don't do that. Make sure that you have a supervisor that you're working with, that you're talking to, that is supervising your work, unless it's scholarly work, like if it's just a literature review that you've done for a class, or you've on your own, you've decided to write a paper on a particular era of history, for example, and you didn't require ethics for that because it's a scholarly publication, then that is perfectly fine. You can present that. If it's something artistic, then you can certainly present that. But if it's research and it's something that has to be done in a lab or requires guidance or supervision or ethics, number one, ethics or any kind of lab safety protocols, then you cannot do it on your own. So I want you guys to frame your experience with SURE and use it as an example of your interest in research. I'm so interested in research. I got started. I joined the SURE program. These are some of the webinars that I took. These are some of the things that I practiced. These are some of the things that I'm learning, and I just want to keep going. So use it as an example of your interest in research. The last three things on this particular infographic, and I'm going to pop them up one by one, but really this is about controlling what you can control and letting go of what you can't control. And what you can't control is whether or not the professor that you love the most and really, really want to work with, what if they don't have any funding? Or what if they're going off on medical leave, or they're going off on a year's sabbatical and they're not taking on any new students at the moment? It has absolutely nothing to do with you. You might be the most amazing student they ever saw, but they're going to regret, and they will regret not being able to host or have you as part of their research, but you can't control that. And it's no reflection on how good you are as a researcher. So that's why I put up this particular picture, is that there's only certain things that you can control, and these are some of the things that you can control. This is the number one. I need you to be very, very sincere, very honest, and very specific when you write those letters of introduction, when you start those conversations with a potential research supervisor. Being dishonest in any way or exaggerating your abilities or your knowledge, it will be the worst thing that you can do. It will damage your credibility in ways that you cannot recover from. So please do not ever do that. Be very, very honest and sincere and specific about your abilities. And it's okay to say, I am absolutely just learning. I really am interested in research, but I haven't done any so far. That's okay too, because then they know where they need to start with their training of you. The flip side of that is being too broad. And I've talked about this already. I'll research anything. I just want a job. That's just as bad of a problem. So we need you to be really specific about your own interests and think hard about your long-term research direction. And it goes back to where we started. Why do you want to do research? Most of you are looking at it from an experience point of view, and that you're wanting to take that classroom experience and move it into the applied phase, which is excellent. It is a totally different way to learn, and you will all be better for it if we can. My goal is to have all of you land research positions if possible. But to do that, please be sincere, be honest, and be specific.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just wondering if we just came into university and we were really impacted by the COVID-19, where all the labs weren't in person and we've never really had any experience in a lab. Should we include that in our introductory email, or should we, where all should we include that?
Well, and sometimes you probably don't want to send them an email that's 50 pages long, right? You kind of want to draw them into that conversation, right? So that's what you want to do, is that you want to start them in a conversation. But if you draw them into the point where they respond to you and they say, how much interest do you, or how, yes, I might have a position, can you tell me more, or something like that. Or actually, I'd probably be truthful with that one right off the bat and just say, because of COVID, all of my labs have been online, and I am absolutely green on in-person lab work, but I am eager and I did lots in high school or whatever, you know, include any experience that you do have, and just let them know that you're really eager and interested. That'll go a long way.
And should we also include that like in anything else other than the introductory email, that like if they want to talk about it more, like, you know, just like a little bit in the introductory email, but should we include it anywhere else when we're like talking?
You mean like on your resume, for
or
example?
like on like a cover letter?
Yep, absolutely. Cover letter. So in this case, an email kind of acts as your cover letter, simply because we're in this mostly hybrid or remote environment. And so you're probably reaching out to these professors mostly via email at the moment. You're not necessarily finding them in hallway. You could potentially, if you really hate email, you could potentially ask a professor to have an in-person meeting. And if you're successful, then you can have this exact same conversation. You've done your research, you know what you want, you're being very specific, you're being very honest, all of those sorts of things. And having that as an in-person conversation, all of these same things can still apply.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so this is about being persistent, and it goes back to what I had to say around it might take some time to find a supervisor who's the right fit and has funding and space to support you. Professors usually know how many students they can handle at any one given point in time, and they won't necessarily go above and beyond that. Let's say that they know their limits. Also, if let's say that they're between funding at the moment, you know, like you might be a superb student, but they might not have room, they might not have funding, they might have something like that that's an issue. So being persistent is making sure that you've identified more than one professor, to identify sort of your top 4 or 5 professors that you can approach, and you can approach them one at a time. Talk to one first, see where that goes. Okay, next one on your list, talk to them, see where that goes. Third one on the list, and go from there. So it's about being persistent in your search, but trying not to be a nuisance. Be professional, improve your focus and your approach, maybe to have someone else look at your letter, look at your introductory letter, your introductory email, and try again, and learning how to move on with grace. This is quite an issue. There's a great question on the chat. Would the rules be different if you already know a professor personally? Yes, the rules, these recommendations fall for the most part in terms of approaching a professor that you do not know and who does not necessarily know you. However, having said that, it is always good to be just as professional with someone that you know as opposed to someone that you don't know, simply because maybe they know you in a personal way, or you've taken a class with them or something like that, but still they may not know what you're actually interested in as a researcher or where you want to go. Do you want to do an honors program? Do you want to do graduate studies? Do you want to go to a different university? Are you just looking for them to get their thoughts on maybe a different university and who's doing research at a separate university that you want to get involved with? So there are all kinds of different ways that you can do it. So the rules are slightly different, but I still want you to be as professional as you would be with someone that you know well. Be as professional as if it was with someone that you didn't know as well. Sorry, that's it. Should you send your transcript? No, only if they ask. Absolutely not. If they ask for it, yes, but after that, no. All right, this is the last one. This is knowing when to say yes. Finding the right supervisor for you is key. And remember how I started with this around when you're doing your research around a particular professor, always pay attention to the graduate students or the existing students, because they'll tell you, they will let you know if things aren't so good in that lab. If it looks really great and really cutting edge and it looks awesome, but the actual atmosphere within that lab is a problem, it's important that you know that. If there's something about the conversation or the offer or the lab or the research program or anything that raises your hackles or gives you pause, please listen to your instinct. This is your space to negotiate or to decline. You are your own best advocate. You also know what you need to make a situation work for you. So if you have particular needs. Let's say you're in a wheelchair and you need to know if they're willing to make some accommodations in their lab, or if they've already made those accommodations and that their lab is a good space for you to work in. You need to know that. And if you think that it's not going to be something that they're willing to work on or adjust for you, then that's probably not going to be the right space for you. The student supervisor relationship has to be built on trust and mutual respect. If you think that you're not being respected, please walk away. And I know that's hard because after all, you've tried really, really hard. This is the one offer you got. You really, really want to do research. I can understand you really, really wanting to do that. But if your bells are going off and your hackles are up and you're not sure, this is a good time to pause, take some time to reflect, and it's also a good time to talk to the other existing students in the lab and just have that private conversation. A really good supervisor will have already offered that to you to say, please don't take my word for it. I'm going to give you the names of 2 students who work in the lab for me right now so that you can talk to them and know what I'm like as a supervisor. If that doesn't happen, that's another red flag. Or if you ask for the names of students and they say, what do you need that for? Okay, that's a problem. So you're looking for a supervisor who is willing to give you names of people who are currently working with them so that you can talk to them in an informal way to know what the culture is like in their particular lab or research program. So after that, this is about shining. So don't exaggerate, be honest, be professional. Don't give up. This isn't about pestering any one particular person, but if you really wish to work on a research project, keep looking until you find a space for you. And you can look outside the university as well. And I'm going to walk you guys through some of that. The Saskatchewan Research Council, the National Research Council, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. There are all kinds of spaces off campus or tangential to campus that also conduct research. And these are really good spaces that have a lot of provincial funding and federal funding to hire students. And the last is to make sure it's the right space for you. Don't settle if something doesn't feel right. Here's a bit of a pause. So let's talk about, and you guys can put this in the chat, let's talk about ways that we can improve this real life example. Dear X, I'm so-and-so from the Agricultural College. Because I'm about to graduate in April of this year and I have an idea of continuing my studies, I would like to ask if you have any openings for students. Okay, after having gone through the presentation that we have, what are some of the ways that we can improve this particular email ask? Be more specific. Absolutely, Pooja. Do you have any particular? And you can just make that up, but be more specific in terms of perhaps what they, say. Ah, very good. There's stuff coming in. Say what your idea is. Yeah, absolutely. Don't just leave them hanging. What's your area of interest in what they want to study? I'm going to go back up on all of these. Start with, I'm about to graduate. Yes, because then you'll know that you're heading into graduate studies. So yes, the introduction. From the Agricultural College, what did you study in the Agricultural College? What's your major? That kind of thing. So, who you are. List your strengths and your interests. Yes, I have an idea of continuing my studies. What's that idea? If you'd like to ask if you have any openings for students, what kind of opening are you looking for? That's a good thing. Say why you're interested in their lab. Absolutely. Did you read any of the professor's articles? That's a really good question. And so, yeah, to say what areas you're interested in and establish that you know what they do. Very, very good. What's your area of continuing studies? Yes. Where are you going next? Specify the time you're available and what you're looking for. That's right. So if you're looking for graduate studies, or if you're just looking for a summer research position, I don't know if you know this, but students who are about to graduate can still take on research work the summer after their graduation as an undergraduate student. So you can do research work without coming into graduate studies in the fall. Specify the time you're available, what you're looking for, what you want out of the opportunity. Absolutely. So you guys were really paying attention. This is good because, but I wanted to give you guys that real life example of sort of before and after. So you guys can take a look at this and you already know all kinds of ways that you can improve this particular ask. So thank you very much for your participation on that. All right. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about, I'm going to go through these fairly quickly, but there are various USask departments and colleges that already support or sponsor undergraduate research. And that's outside of any program that comes through my office. So the Arts and Science Undergraduate Travel Fund competition. Chemistry has undergraduate research awards. Biology has their certificate in undergraduate research. That's it's mostly course-based, but there is some experiential learning in that. St. Thomas More has the College Engaged Learning Fund, and that's a competitive grant. It's usually about social justice and community service learning, but it is something that you can sometimes access for research. Kinesiology has their 1 credit research experience. So it's about 1 hour a week. It's a very reasonable workload. Psychology has their undergraduate research conference. So this is where they do course-based and undergraduate research projects, and they have a bit of a conference. Toxicology has their TUREP program, Toxicology Undergraduate Research Experience Program. You apply to it. It's a research experience program, not an independent research project. It's not part of their formal academic program, but it is a research experience, and they're very proud of it, and they support it heavily. So toxicology is a really good one. And of course, Western College of Veterinary Medicine does a superb job of supporting undergraduate summer research and leadership. Something that people don't always know is that just because if you're not in the Western College of Veterinary Medicine, you might think that you can't apply for that, but you actually can. So cross-pollination, let's put it that way. If you want to apply for something outside of your discipline, you absolutely can. College of Medicine actually has a lot of undergraduate research as well. So Dean's projects for students in the College of Medicine, biomedical projects, and they also have interdisciplinary projects, and these are students co-supervised by pharmacy, nutrition, and medicine. So these are some examples of some college level stuff, and all of this is on my undergraduate research initiative website, and all the links are there. So it's under research opportunities, and you'll find it really, really easily. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the NSERC USRAs. So this program is moving to my office. So I'm going to be the one who's going to be sort of the main point of contact for this. And as I said, the Natural Sciences and Engineering's Research Council of Canada, this is Undergraduate Student Research Awards. They're for 16 weeks, and they're almost all at UVS in the summer. You should know, though, that students who are Indigenous actually, so we get an allocation that comes from NSERC. This year we had 63, but we have over and above that, an Indigenous student can also apply for an NSERC USRA, and that's not part of the allocation. So we can have as many as 10 or more Indigenous students also apply. Is it possible to ask for a research position in a lab or research area that is not related to what you study, but you're interested in? Absolutely, you certainly can. Some professors really value that. They really value the interdisciplinary thought and learning that comes from other disciplines. And so absolutely, I encourage you to try and ask. I mean, what's the worst that they can say is no. That's not really that hard. You guys can deal with that. So beyond USask, how to find a research job elsewhere. I'm going to just tell you about a few of these. So the National Research Council has a co-op program. They have, and most of their stuff comes through the Student Employment and Career Center. So they're posted every year. They also have a student employment program. My Tax runs, so this is new. My Tax is a federal company, or they get federal funds, and then what they do is that they connect universities and industry and students all together in a triangle. And the Accelerate program has now been expanded to accept undergraduate students. And so that is something that you can take a look at, and I recommend there. The Government of Canada is a huge supporter of students doing research. And so there's the Research Affiliate Program, Student Work Experience Program. They also will do co-ops and internships, and then they have the Student Work Placement Program. The fourth one on there, the Student Work Placement Program, that one is actually divided by a whole bunch of different industries. So the mining industry has their own set of funding, and the biomedical sciences has their own set of funding. So yeah, what are the deadlines for most research opportunities during regular terms as well as spring, summer? Deadlines vary. And again, it depends if you're actually applying for a specific opportunity, like a job that's been advertised, it'll have its own deadlines. NSERC will have its own deadlines, but you need to have your supervisor already lined up. So you need to have that conversation beforehand before you can apply for a USRA. And where would you go to apply for the WCVM summer research program that I'd mentioned earlier? For the most part, WCVM does keep theirs for their own students, but I have seen students from outside their program also win summer research programming. So just take a look at their website, and all of these are all freely available on the public and the internet. So just go looking, okay? And you'll find all the deadlines that you need to know, okay? This comes into your ability to do research on your own. I'm going to stop my show for a moment. I want to, I thought I had it pulled up, but it doesn't look like I do, but I'll pull it up in a second. Let's see. There we go. So research assistantships and funding. Alexa, can you see my screen where it says research assistantships and funding? Just want to make sure that I'm still sharing the same screen. Yes, thanks, Dominic. Okay, so I wanted to do this because I've got down to kind of about here, national funding, which I went through. So all of those things that I just went through in the PowerPoint presentation, they're all here with all the links. Okay, so there's all kinds of things that you can take a look at here, but I wanted to mention that there's a few more that I didn't put on the PowerPoint. If you're interested in particular, especially health and infectious diseases and hospital research, there's a whole bunch of other Canadian undergraduate assistantships that you can apply for, and I have them listed here. I also have a link for international funding, and again, that's so MyTax has 2 international funds. That internships that undergraduate students can apply for. And there's other things like Euro Scholars, high recommendation for that one. The Summer Research Program for Undergraduate Life Science students, that one does quite a lot as well from the School of Life Sciences. And this is also where you're going to see the Dobbin Atlantic Scholarship Program. This is between Ireland and Canada. So if you're more into history or literature, that kind of thing, there is undergraduate research experiences for you as well. You don't have to be in the health sciences necessarily. But I just wanted to kind of show you my screen and let you know that there are lots of opportunities out there, and I am just touching the edge of what's out there. I try, yes, well, it's so, just so you, I can, but just so you guys know, this is about, so Office of the Vice President Research, under students, undergraduate research. So this is my, I take care of this site. I'll put it in the chat so that everybody can have access to it. And all of the links for this, including, so all the links for the SURE program are here. So you would click on that and you'd learn all the links about SURE and all the signups and everything that's coming up. And the second thing I have on my site is opportunities and funding. So this is where you would click opportunities and funding, take a look, and research assistant, find research assistantships and funding, and then they're all there. Okay, so just so you know. So I did give you sort of the undergraduate research. Please take a look around it, so then you'll know everything that I do. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and continue answering questions, because I'm at the end of my presentation as I had outlined it. I hope that it was helpful. Common questions that I often get. Yes, number one, how much do your marks count? It depends on the professor. Some professors really value marks, others don't. Others are like, marks don't really matter. It's your grit and determination, your stick-to-itiveness, your ability to get your butt into the lab, put your phone down, do your work. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for students who are able to go when things don't work, because research is nothing like a lab where you know exactly what's supposed to happen and you all have a cookie cutter ending. Research is not like that. And I don't care if you're doing historical research, if you're in an archive, if you're in a lab, if you're out in the field, I don't care what kind of research you're doing. research is not a straight path. And so if you can demonstrate that you have that stick-to-itiveness, that real resilience, that ability to come back and try again the next day after you've been knocked down, that's the kind of energy that most professors are looking for. Now, having said that, we do have a special session coming up next week with faculty members here at the University of Saskatchewan who have supervised undergraduate students. We have a roundtable next week with those professors, and those professors are going to talk about what they look for in students and the sorts of things that they've watched students learn. So please sign up. So go on that link, go into the SURE program and sign up and register for that event. So that is professors telling you in their own words what they look for in students. So that's a big thing. How do professors determine your grit though, since you don't know them well enough when you email them? It's true, it's a good question, but that's where you might want to put in maybe an example of a time when things didn't go well for you, or times that you've really had to pull from your grit and determination. And you can say, I'm full of grit and determination. That's not going to get you very far. You need to actually give them an example of something that happened to you that you have walked through and that you've really come back to the table. And maybe it's something that you did in a class. Maybe you were part of a research group in a class that you were taking, and you were the one who did the heavy lifting in that class and really got everything done and got the project or the report or whatever it was done on time. Then that's a good example to put in there. So an example will always speak louder than just a statement. So do keep that. Thanks, Annie. It's a good question. You're welcome.
Hi, I have a question.
Sure, Odette, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm graduating this fall. So I'm still considered as an undergraduate student, yet I started my master's program. So can I do undergraduate research then?
Because you're already registered as a graduate student, no, you wouldn't be able to.
Okay.
Going through 1.5 years of online school is enough proof of grit. I am not going to argue with you on that one. I think that is a really good example of grit and determination. I agree. Any other questions, you guys? Go ahead, shoot them out. Alexa, I didn't see anything more. Did you notice anything more? Yeah, leading a girls guys group, it shows your ability to organize, it shows your ability to lead, it shows your ability to plan. These are all good things, really, really good. So again, it goes to that slide where it was about, who you are and what you bring to the table. So something like that is a really good example. It's Wednesday. Tomorrow is a day of truth and reconciliation. If you're looking for an honor supervisor for next fall, for fall 2022, when should you start emailing or contacting professors? You can't start too early. You definitely can start too late. So I would start anytime. I really would. And just again, be specific. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm aiming for. I'm just, just say I'm just really ahead of the game and getting my ducks in a row early. That's okay too. Professors will be like, "Ooh, he's organized, good," or "She's organized, good," and that's what they'll do. If anyone has any questions, burning questions, would this SURE program be repeated for winter term, or would it be different? There'll be some things that might be repeated, some that will be different. Each term has been different so far. I am finding that there are certain themes that students would like to see again and again, so I want to make sure that I put those forward every term. Are there any great summer research jobs at USask? Yes, I have seen a lot. If I'm going to share my screen again and show you guys how to see some of the examples. So it's right underneath opportunities and funding. You'll find student research stories. We have had a huge number of students who have come forward to bring us their stories and their about their undergraduate research. So if you just click on all student stories, you will see all kinds. And then the most recent one that I told you guys about, the lab rat Ashton Height, and then all kinds of others. So this one's about the toxicology program. Here's all about Alexa, who now works for my office. This is Vedihi, who runs the Science Research and Society Club. There are all kinds of stories. Oh, hang on, I didn't actually share. So there you go. So student stories, all kinds of student stories from students here at the U of S that have had excellent summer research positions that they've really enjoyed, and high recommend for you to read some of those and just see examples of what other students have taken on in their summer. We can't see your screen. Hopefully you saw it, Ariba. Hopefully you did see it after that. Yes, good. Do professors, researchers take students in the middle of a research project? Yeah, sometimes they will. I mean, after all, things happen, right? People get sick, people have to leave, people move away, you know, like things happen, right? So sometimes research kind of gets left, and sometimes they're looking for someone to pick up something that's already in progress. Sometimes that's at the beginning of a program. Sometimes they get partially into a program and they're like, yeah, we could use a little bit more firepower. You know, I'd like to hire another student, you know, so there's no actual answer for that, nor due dates are always floating as well, because it depends on if a professor is hiring you because they've won a grant. Those grants can be won and the funding come into place anytime, all the way through the year. There isn't any particular deadline. So again, it's a matter of getting out there, knowing what's happening, knowing what's coming up, knowing who's recently won a grant, you know, trying to get in and talk to them, that kind of thing. It's about you being really out there. When you approach a professor about an honors project, do you already have to have an idea for a project? Not necessarily, not always. Sometimes a professor, it'll depend on what discipline you're in. Some honors projects do require a lab that has a bit of scope to allow you to study zebrafish, or, you know, run gels, or, you know, whatever it is that you want to do for your research project. Other honors project, I'm a historian, for example, it really doesn't cost a whole lot of money because we have an archive on multiple archives on campus. And so, you know, I go to the archive, I set out my research plan, and, you know, and it's just a matter of my time to do the research, right? So you can have an idea for a particular research project, or you can use that as a negotiating start, and that's okay too. What'll often happen is that students who've had a summer research project, let's say between their third and their fourth year, oftentimes they'll get started, they'll do a summer research project that then morphs into an honors project in their fourth year. That happens all the time across campus. What are fire courses? So first year research experience. So there are a number of classes across the university, mostly in geography, women's and gender studies, some in political studies, and a few sprinkled across the campus where the faculty have deliberately created a research project, a research component right at the first year level. And it's to get students used to research right at the first year level. And what professors have realized is that the earlier we can get students sort of exposed to the concept of research, of developing a research question, actually doing the research on a research question, and then sharing their results with someone else. So those are the three components. That when they come into those more senior classes, capstone classes, experiential classes, and honors classes, they're way more ready, like way more ready. They have skill sets that other students may not have. How do we enroll in fire courses? Fire courses are you have to find them. They're attributes. So when you're in Manor and you're searching for classes, the attribute that you're looking for is undergraduate research. And then if it's at a first year level, so that's how you find a fire course. They're not listed as a fire course. They don't. Undergraduate research is as best as I can get them do. You can include your fire course experience in your email, but just saying that you were part of a fire course is probably not going to get you very far. I would be more specific and say, I took this particular class, I took Geography 120. We had to do an individual research project. This was my research project. This was what I found. you know, and these are the skill sets that I learned. Like I would be more, just saying I was in a fire class isn't going to get you very far. You guys are full of questions. Sounds good. You're welcome. Okay, it's 4:29. That's an hour. That's enough. I did promise the students that I would now start to keep the questions as part of the recording, because some of the questions are things that I don't necessarily think of. So I am doing that more now. Thank you very much for joining me. If you have further questions, you can email me, and go looking around on the SURE website and our opportunities website and the student stories, so that you can see what other students have done here at the U of S. And thanks very much for joining us today. Take care, everyone. Bye.